Hacker group holds Cyberport personal data to ransom. 1,800 jaywalkers fined during a police clampdown over the past 3 weeks. And Premier Li Qiang and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese meet on the sidelines of the East Asia Summit in Jakarta.
In a statement issued on Tuesday night, Cyberport said there was an unauthorized third-party access to part of its computer system. Cyberport has reported the incident to the police and the Privacy Commissioner for Personal Data. The hacker group announced online that they have got hold of 400 gigabytes of personal data, including staff IDs, photos, resumes, addresses, and phone numbers. Also, staff members' MPF forms and Cyberport's payment records. The hacker group is demanding a ransom of $300,000, equivalent to some 2.35 million Hong Kong dollars. The proprietor of a company there said the Cyberport management should further communicate with them.
The data are very sensitive because now we only see that the Cyberport has a press release to tell the public about the incident, but they didn't issue a special a notice like in an email format to comfort companies like us.
A cybersecurity expert explains how a ransomware intrusion could happen. That includes the presence of loopholes in remote access service, the database not being protected from outsiders, the accounts or passwords of employees being hacked, or the ransomware being downloaded through phishing emails. Anthony Lai said ransomware usually targets out-of-date settings, which suggests inadequate data security measures. He also expects the hacker has gained access to the data of at least 400 people and urged Cyberport to immediately plug the loopholes. For now, the case is being handled by the Cybersecurity and Technology Crime Unit of the police. The privacy watchdog noted it was informed about a data leakage on August 18th and an investigation is underway. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Around 1,800 jaywalkers received $2,000 on-the-spot fines over the last 3 weeks in a clampdown. Around a quarter of them were people aged 65 or above. The police reminded residents to remain cautious when crossing the road and said the law is for their own safety. Timothy Lee tells us more.
In a campaign that lasted from the 13th of last month to last Saturday, the police penalized large numbers of acts violating traffic regulations. The force fined a total of 1,785 individuals across more than 170 locations. A quarter of those penalized were aged 65 or above, around 75% of them for jaywalking. 11% did not use pedestrian crossing facilities, while 7% ignored footbridges or subways. Authorities noted people primarily break these traffic rules because they are either in a rush or it is more convenient. They added many underestimate the speed of moving vehicles and are unaware of the dangers of the road. Tai Po's Hung Si Wui Street is considered by the force as a hotspot for incidents of traffic rule violations. Despite increased police presence, many still ignored the traffic lights. After observing for around an hour, authorities recorded more than 10 cases of people crossing during a red light, many of them senior citizens. This pedestrian said if there were no police around, many people would just ignore the traffic lights. The police are currently also targeting drivers breaking traffic rules, having penalized more than 2,000 motorists over the past 3 weeks. Several of them were suspected of using their phones while driving or were caught speeding. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
A fatal accident at a Kowloon motor bus depot in Kowloon Bay this morning. A bus captain was suspected to have been hit by a bus that was moving backward at the time. The man later died in hospital. Police arrested another driver in connection with the incident. Authorities received a report from a KMB employee at around 7:30 this morning that a male bus driver was found unconscious on the floor. The man sustained serious injuries to the head and legs. He was suspected to have been hit by a bus. He was sent to United Christian Hospital, but was later pronounced dead. Sources say the deceased was about 50 years old. He joined KMB in May this year, and he was scheduled to arrive at work at 5:30 this morning, but failed to make a morning shift report, only to be found in his unconscious state by a colleague more than an hour later. Rising geopolitical tensions and the ongoing Myanmar crisis were the primary focus at the East Asia Summit during the last day of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit in Jakarta. Meanwhile, China and Australia expressed a willingness to strengthen ties after years of frosty relations. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Premier Li Qiang, US Vice President Kamala Harris, and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov were among those who participated in the East Asian Summit on the last day of the ASEAN Summit in the Indonesian capital, Jakarta. In a speech, Indonesian President Joko Widodo said all countries present have a responsibility to not create new conflict, new tension, new war, and to reduce tensions. Indonesia and other Southeast Asian countries have warned this week of what they called destructive rivalries between major powers, a reference to looming US-China tensions they say puts them in danger. Meanwhile, Premier Li Qiang and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese met on the sidelines of the leaders' meetings. They agreed to boost bilateral exchanges between Beijing and Canberra. Ties had deteriorated after the previous Australian government called for an independent investigation into the origins of the pandemic and barred Huawei from rolling out its 5G networks. Li said China was ready to work with Australia to resume economic exchanges and to safeguard peace and stability in the region. Albanese also confirmed he would visit China later this year. This would be the first trip by an Australian leader to its biggest trading partner since 2016, a significant step in stabilising ties. And United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres expressed concern about the worsening situation in Myanmar.
I remain deeply concerned about the worsening political, humanitarian and human rights situation in Myanmar, including Rakhine State, and the plight of the massive number of refugees living in desperate conditions. I welcome ASEAN's principled approach to the five-point consensus, and I urge all countries to continue to seek a unified strategy towards Myanmar.
Following the summit, Indonesia will end its leadership of ASEAN this year and hand over to Laos as chair of the bloc in 2024. Daniel, TV News.
Premier Li Qiang took a test ride on Southeast Asia's first high-speed railway, which connects two Indonesian cities, Jakarta and Bandung, as part of China's Belt and Road Infrastructure Initiative. The two countries are now looking into the feasibility of extending the railway to Surabaya, Indonesia's second-largest city. Li is visiting Jakarta for talks with leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and other countries. The $7.3 billion rail project, funded largely by China, connects Jakarta and Bandung, the heavily populated capital of West Java province. It will cut travel time between the two cities from the current 3 hours to about 40 minutes. Construction of the rail line began in 2015. It was originally expected to begin operations in 2019, but was delayed by disputes over land acquisition, environmental issues, and the pandemic. The trains were modified for Indonesia's tropical climate and are equipped with a safety system that can respond to earthquakes, floods, and other emergency conditions. Starting today, 8 trains will run between Jakarta and Bandung free of charge to the public each day. Commercial operations will begin on October 1st. Still ahead, a WHO warning that COVID deaths are increasing in some parts of the world. And the Consumer Council names 4 Chinese pharmacies in Causeway Bay, revealing their sales malpractices. Welcome back. The World Health Organization has warned that COVID deaths are increasing in some parts of the world ahead of the winter season in the Northern Hemisphere. WHO's Director General says data is limited as only 43 countries are reporting deaths and only 20 are reporting hospitalizations. This as Moderna and Pfizer said Wednesday their updated COVID-19 vaccines have generated strong responses in testing against the highly mutated BA.2.86 subvariant of the coronavirus, which has raised fears of a resurgence. Tracy Furness has more.
The World Health Organization published a global strategic preparedness and response plan for COVID-19 on Wednesday, and at a press briefing, WHO's Director General warned that COVID is not going away.
We continue to see concerning trends for COVID-19 ahead of the winter season in the Northern Hemisphere. Deaths are increasing in some parts of the Middle East and Asia. ICU admissions are increasing in Europe, and hospitalizations are increasing in several regions. Globally, there is not one variant that's dominant. The variant of interest, EG.5, is on the rise, while the XBB subvariants are declining. The BA.2.86 variant has been detected in small numbers in 11 countries. WHO is monitoring this variant closely to assess its transmissibility and potential impact.
Moderna said Wednesday that clinical trial data shows its updated COVID-19 vaccine will likely be effective against the highly mutated BA.2.86 subvariant of the coronavirus. The updated vaccine generated an 8.7-fold increase in neutralizing antibodies in people against the BA.2.86. Meanwhile, rivals Pfizer said their updated Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine also elicited a strong antibody response against BA.2.86 subvariant. The vaccine is expected to be used this fall. Both companies say their new vaccines appear to be effective in initial testing against new subvariant EG.5. The WHO has warned at-risk people who have not received a COVID-19 vaccination recently should do so.
Our message is not to wait to get an additional dose if it's recommended for you.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
The hunt continues for a man who escaped from a prison in the U.S. state of Pennsylvania by climbing up and over a passageway. His brazen breakout is being described as a crab walk. David Garrett reports.
Last Thursday morning in a Pennsylvania prison yard, an inmate left of screen found an escape route. He suspended himself between two walls and climbed horizontally. Danilo Cavalcante pushed out through some wire fencing and was away over a roof. It took the authorities an hour to realise the prisoner, who is being compared to Spider-Man, had vanished. A week on, they're still searching for the convicted murderer who stabbed his girlfriend to death in 2021. The manhunt continues.
It was surreal. There were police cars, more than 20 police cars, all lining over there down the street with police dogs.
After a week of failing to find the fugitive, law enforcement held a news conference and released the CCTV video of the escape in the hope it will capture the public's interest and help them recapture Cavalcante. There is a reward for information that leads to the Brazilian's arrest, but there is little for police to go on.
Check security cameras they have and to call us immediately if they believe they may have seen Cavalcante. Again, we ask residents to please secure homes, outbuildings, and vehicles. Cavalcante has clearly already obtained some clothing and unknown other supplies, and we want to minimize any opportunity to obtain anything more.
A tower guard working at the time has been put on leave. It's emerged another inmate made a similar escape in May but was quickly recaptured. Officers increased security at Chester County Prison, but not sufficiently, it seems. Prison bosses rejected the idea. They've been outsmarted.
We've had a number of these types of searches in the past. Some take hours, some take days, some take weeks, and some take months. We're committed to the search, and we will find him. We will bring him back.
There have been 6 potential sightings of the 34-year-old during his 7 days on the run. He remains at large. David Garrett, TVB News.
The Consumer Council has slammed 4 Chinese pharmacies in the city, revealing their sales malpractices, such as using misleading pricing units to rip off customers. Mimo Singhai has details.
The 4 pharmacies, which sell Chinese herbal medicine and dried seafood, are all located in Causeway Bay. Among them, City Medicine Limited and Medicine Palace Living Plaza on Lockhart Road. The third pharmacy is the nearby On Home Medicine Company on East Point Road, the former sport of Global Medicine Company. Our reporter went into one of the above pharmacies to try to get the employees' opinions on the latest complaints about their shops. It's my first day working here. I don't know, the man said. I have not received any instructions from my boss, he added. The Consumer Council said 96 complaints related to the 4 Chinese pharmacies were filed in the past 32 months. Among them, 80 cases were about sales malpractices. Meanwhile, 49 cases were recorded after the resumption of the cross-border travel with the mainland. The shops also deliberately obscured the pricing units by displaying them in muted colors or minuscule fonts. Some end up paying 16 times more than they expected to pay. When a customer asked about the price of a product, a shop assistant would only tell them the price displayed and not the unit of measurement. Moreover, some shop assistants would quickly grind or slice some Chinese herbal medicine ingredients or dried seafood once a customer showed interest in buying. Customers who refused to buy the products were forced to do so. As most of the recorded cases are related to mainland tourists, the council says such unacceptable trade malpractices affect the city negatively.
I would not say these malpractices only affect tourists, but also affect locally. And the worst effect is it is really detrimental to the overall retail image of Hong Kong. Tourists, a lot of them are probably first time or not really coming to Hong Kong often, right? So we need to strengthen our consumer education.
The Consumer Watchdog said people should always seek medical advice from a registered Chinese medicine practitioner and only consume prescribed medication. Mimosa 9, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.